What celebrities have you encountered that were either really nice or really horrible? I ran into Adam Sandler outside of a Planet Fitness in Brooklyn in early 2016. As I was leaving the Planet Fitness, it looked like he was walking in. We made eye contact. So I stopped and held the door for him. He got to the door and stopped right before he walked through. In one of those fake poses that little kids make when you tell them to freeze. I stood there holding the door. Plenty confused. For about 5 seconds. We just stood at him. Motionless and I. Standing there holding the door. Finally. He turned his head and said in the stereotypical Adam Sandler voice. Who we kidding? I'm not going, and their giant grin on his face. We both laughed and then he continued down the street. Awesome. He was in my town in Nye shooting something for Netflix a few years ago. When he was done for the day he went down to the local park and started playing pickup games of basketball with people. My mom spotted Robin Williams once and she went up to him and asked if she could get a quick photo. She didn't realize he was there in the middle or about to do something with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, so she waited until they were done around 20-30 minutes later, and then a bunch of the kids and people wanted photos with him. He made it a point to stick around and told his staff I think that woman wanted a photo and made sure she got it. Mom was thrilled. He was such a humble, nice dude. I was working in a little boutique store in Seattle with my girlfriend and it was a particularly slow day when all of a sudden Robin Williams walked through the door. He was the only one in the store and my girlfriend didn't know who he was. We left him alone, and when he came up to purchase his things he started barking at my Boston Terrier in a cute way. It scared the crap out of my Boston Terrier and he started barking back at Robin. He was so genuine and nice, and I really do remember how hairy his arms were. For some reason that really stuck out. He walked out the door and instantly was surrounded by a bunch of tourists trying to take pictures of him. He put his bags in the back of his Mini Cooper and drove off. He bought a little piece of artwork and 3 Gorin Bros hats. I met Paul Rudd on a flight from Nye. Sat next to him on the plane. My buddy leaned over and told me that he wanted to compliment him on this band shirt he wore when making Clueless. But he didn't want it to be weird. So his solution was to write him a note and slip it to him. LOL. So he does this. And Paul just gets this nervous look on his face. Opens the note and reads it. Starts cracking up laughing. Leaned over to us and said, "Best note ever." He then told us the whole story of the shirt. How he fought with the costume decked about it because it was the shirt he wore to set that day. We talked the whole flight. Dude was super cool. Edit. Banned his trip Shakespeare. Oh. This makes me so happy I saw his name and almost didn't read on because I'd be so upset if he wasn't nice. My mom and sister met The Rock when he was still a wrestler. They had a couple car seats and tons of bags, having a hell of a time getting off the plane, and people were waiting, and then this massive guy offered to carry some things for them and they happily took the help. He grabbed some bags and held the baby carrier with my niece in it and helped them off the plane and left. After people kept going up to them asking how they knew The Rock and they were very confused until someone explained who he was. Everything I ever hear about him, he's super cool. He did a rap. https://reddit. app. link/6bikesandti5 from Moana with some dude interviewing him for the guy's kids because the guy's kids were massive Moana fans. I reckon he's so nice that on the airplane, I bet you he let the person next to him have the armrest. He probably thought this isn't The Rock's elbow room. This is the people's elbow room. I met the Saint Bernard dog from Beethoven at Planet Hollywood when I was a kid. Seemed like a pretty nice dog in person. Met Dave Chappelle a few years back. Long story short, a friend of a friend got me and 2 friends into an after party. We were sitting at the bar when his manager offered us some shots. We talked with his manager for a while. Then Dave sat down near us. Dave was kind of sitting by himself and he looks over at us and goes, "What's going on, fellas?" And we talked to him for about an hour. We thanked him for coming to our town. Talked about music, sports, all kinds of stuff. Super cool dude. One of my favorite memories. I served Daniel Radcliffe his dessert at an event. And tripped and spilled some of it on him. Probably due to seeing that I was serving Daniel Radcliffe. And he stood up and started apologizing profusely to me. Was very sweet and asking if I was okay. The correct British response I like. How fame never seemed to give him a big head. I met Vin Diesel at a truck stop diner when I was a kid. It was like 4 in the morning and me My grandpa and Vin and his friend were the only ones in the diner. And we ended up getting sat at the table next to them. Vin and a friend were getting ready to go on some fishing trip, which was made obvious by the clothes they were wearing. My grandpa struck up a conversation about fishing with him, completely oblivious to who he was. He was a really nice guy and apparently knew a great deal about fishing techniques. I was a bit geeked out and didn't say much or contribute to the conversation, but I spent the next hour of our road trip explaining to my grandpa who Vin Diesel was and why it was a huge deal we just met him. I bet for Vin it was probably refreshing to have a casual conversation with someone about a personal hobby that didn't center around his celebrity status. Deleted. Nice couple of people to have met. Particularly Buzz Aldrin. Always going to be a special person in history, so you're a lucky person. My husband and I were wandering around Philly a few years ago and Don Cheadle was walking toward us. We both stopped and turned as we watched him go by. After he passed us he turned around with a big smile and winked. I just thought that was pretty cool. Was a server for Tom Cruise. Pretty cool dude. TBH. Was a bit out of touch. But that's to be expected. The funny part was he didn't know what he could order off of our menu. So he had to call his nutritionist to find out what to get. Ended up getting fried chicken. That's hilarious. Met Matthew Lillard, his wife, and newborn daughter like literally after the release of the first Scooby-Doo movie. My family always hosts 4th of July parties in our beach house. And he party crashed. I was like 7 or 8 at the time and my cousins were freaking out saying Shaggy is here. Of course I immediately sprinted over and he was eating a hot dog. Super cliche I know since it's the 4th of July lol. He was so cool. The whole time he was in character and offering me to have him go get a hot dog for me. I remember my little cousins asking where Scooby was at and he replied, "Oh, Scoob's ate so many hot dogs that he's like having a food coma." Seriously. One of most highlighted memory dating back to my youth. That's phenomenal. By all accounts he's a good dude. Used to do delivery runs for a catering company. And we would get a lot of celebrities at the airport that ordered from us. Johnny Depp was the only one I ever saw face to face. Dude pulled a wadded up bill from his pocket and tossed it at me. I thought it was cool I got a tip directly from him at all. But once I had it all unwadded it was $100 bill. He's really a total sweetheart. I saw him at a few shows. He plays guitar with Alice Cooper, and after the set ended he leaned down from the stage to give me a hug. Smiling the whole time. I greeted him with Captain Jack and he laughed. Even though I was just a kid. Nicest dude. I met Jim Carrey when I was like 11 at a party my parents attended. I couldn't stop staring at him. He was behaving so normal and then when he noticed me staring he did a mask facial expression and started staring at me. He's a genuinely funny guy and probably has the purest of heart. I met a few celebs working as an event photographer for fundraisers from time to time. Chevy Chase. Well, the stories are true. He was a huge jerk. Jamie Lee Curtis was one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Bar none and easily the nicest celeb I met working the camera. Very considerate and thoughtful person. She kept checking with us to see if she could do anything for us or if we needed any more shots she could help with. Great sense of humor too. Jamie Lee Curtis seems to do a good job remembering her extras. They did a bit on James Corden's show and she picked out the lady that did a scene with her several years ago. Tom Hiddleston told me my dog was awesome. So that was the highlight of my life lol. I am eternally jealous of this exact interaction. When my dad was about 9, 1964-ish, he was on a plane from Latter Heathrow in coach with his mom. The stewardess came back and excitedly asked him if he wanted to meet a Beatle. My dad said sure but didn't really know the Beatles at that age. And only said yes because that's kinda what you do at that age. He sat on the couch next to George. Different time. Airlines treated you like people. George folds up his newspaper and says, "So, do you like my music?" My dad says, like a confused 10-year-old, no. Apparently George smiled and went back to reading his newspaper. My dad sat there like a doofus for like 5-10 minutes until the stewardess came and got him. So George Harrison was cool to children. And my dad's the most stone cold 10-year-old ever. Flavor Flav ate at the restaurant I work at once. He made a huge deal about having to sit somewhere private because he didn't want any attention. When it came to pay his bill, He tried to pay with a prepaid Visa that did not have enough money on it. Edit, spelling. Sounds pretty on brand. Bumped into Gordon Ramsay in the lift in a hotel in Hong Kong. He was very friendly. We didn't talk to him or ask for a picture. I just blurted out, "You're Gordon Ramsay," and he acknowledged and smiled. He insisted on us going first because we had our suitcases with us. Wished us a nice day. Said bye several times when we saw him in the lobby again. Very friendly. Got the chance to meet him a few years back and he really is a pretty nice guy. Just has a low tolerance for bullshit. Nearly 20 years ago, I literally bumped into Mick Foley at Six Flags in NJ. I was walking backwards down the exit ramp from a ride, while talking to some friends, and he was being escorted up the exit ramp with his kids. To skip the line, my dumbass never saw him coming, and I backed right up into him. Dude was super cool about. He just caught me, gave me a pat on the back when I apologized and said, "No problem dude. Have a nice day." And then I realized who it was as he was walking away. My jaw dropped and one of my buddies just looked at me and said, "Did mankind just tell you to have a nice day? Where is you shut him off when you need him?" Met Peter Cullen, voice of Optimus Prime and EIL, at BotCon in 2012. They had a raffle system set up for autographs meet and greets. He saw a bunch of us standing off to the side, including a man next to me who was sobbing because Peter meant so much to him. Peter full on ran from the line he was supposed to be autographing and bear hugged this guy for at least a solid minute, patting his back and saying, "It's all right. Everything is okay. I'm here now," while the guy sobbed on him. Then Peter autographed all our memorabilia and was whisked away by some very angry con staff. Wonderful. Wonderful man. Class act and genuinely kind. I was working on a set once where John C. Reilly acted as one of the main characters. It was a pretty small set and low budget, not even sure if the show ever aired, so we all found ourselves working closely together for the most part. I sat across from him during lunch one day and we chatted for a bit about random stuff. The guy talks the same way he acts, which is why I think he plays such a great character in any comedy, because he quite literally plays his own attitude in many roles. At least it seems. But anyway, he was a very nice and down-to-earth guy. I found it hard not to giggle every time he spoke because I just couldn't shake the image in my head of all the roles he's played. Stephen Fry was absolutely delightful. Charming. Chatty. Got my name wrong once at the beginning of the evening and kept apologizing for it over the course of the night. Katie Price was an absolute bollocking cunt. Seemed to believe she ranked just under the Queen in social standing. In actuality she ranks just under the drummer and the third best Queen cover band in Slough. Seemed to believe she ranked just under the Queen in social standing. In actuality she ranks just under the drummer and the third best Queen cover band in Slough. Haha, fantastic. Stephen Fry's a genuine national treasure. The entire cast of What We Do in the Shadows TV show. I work in film as a carpenter, so I was invited to the wrap party. They were all really nice and everyone got absolutely plastered. It was a really good night. I didn't expect to like that show as much as I did and am eagerly anticipating season 2. Horny for love. My grandma sat next to Rob Van Winkle, Vanilla Ice, on a plane before he was famous for Ice Ice Baby. She knew who he was but didn't want him to know. They had a lovely 4-hour conversation and she said he was really intelligent and nice. Grandma got to talk to Ice Ice Baby. Stanley. That guy was just as awesome in person. Rest in peace, Stan. I met him at a con shortly before he passed. I was ecstatic. It's Stan fucking Lee, but he barely moved. He could have been a robot. Didn't talk during autographs. Didn't move a muscle in photos. I was a little disappointed but can understand not having the energy at his age to be animated all day long. He did have a ton of energy at his panel and was like a completely different person. Like he was saving up his energy all day for that panel. Ewan McGregor accidentally ran over my BF's foot a couple of years ago when he was filming his Long Way Round series. He was absolutely lovely though. My BF loves bikes, so he was over the moon, bless him. Apparently they talked about his GS for a couple of minutes together. Apparently it's one of his favorite memories. He had to restrain himself a little from roasting the GS as they are notorious for their unreliability. Went with my parents to a function for some charity group and we shared a table with Ice-T. Super nice guy. Down to earth and not high on himself. He has a mouth on him, but when he found out my dad is a retired preacher, never heard a bad word again the rest of the night. I ended up talking music and how he goes from rap to metal. Man is cool and knows his shit about the metal and punk scene. Snoop Dogg, totally. Unflappably chill. 100% of the time. It's like a superpower. John Bon Jovi, smoked a cigarette with him. Couldn't have been more down to earth. I believe he's making BBQ sandwiches for homeless people as we speak. On the other hand, Jeremy Piven, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, must have been method acting for the Ari Gold role. Ringo Starr likes this restaurant by my house. I have run into him a few times while I'm up there. If he's with someone else then he's bearable. There is thus one time though. I was with a friend and he exited the restaurant with his wife. My friend saw who he was and looked shocked. He just looked in our direction and said, "Yes, it is I," and drove off. We were then informed by the valet guy a few feet away that we got the lucky end because some older folks were nearby. In short, Ringo is a salty man. Yes, it is I. That's actually a pretty epic way to greet people. Deleted. I don't wanna be a dick, but are we just gonna gloss over your apparent habit of carrying around a copy of 47 Ronin? My mom met Bob Marley outside of a concert out of pure luck. Her friends had already left without her and he got a security guard to drive her home. Years later her best friend gave my mom a signed poster that said he hoped she was doing good and had better friends. Edit. Holy shit, that's a lot of likes. Thanks. Your mom definitely had sex with Bob Marley. Zac Efron was a douche when I met him, but it was during his high school musical days and he was just a kid then. So who knows what he's really like now. Justin Timberlake is exactly the same guy you see on TV. That's a real southern boy right there. Alex Trebek is just an all-around cool dude. Mark Harmon is awkward. But his wife is adorable. Maria Bello is super rude and snotty. Hope to never see her again. Alan Tudyk is the shit. He was super busy and trying to leave. Since I'm a fan. On his way out the door I called out after him that I'd always love Firefly. Instead of continuing on his way, Alan took the time to come back, ask my name, shake my hand, and thank me for my support. Love that guy. Pierce Brosnan, you know what you did. Fuck you. Asshole. Did Pierce try to swoop in on your estranged wife while you were disguised as an old British nanny in an attempt to maintain a relationship with your children? Dave Grohl came into the record store I used to work at on my day off. So I missed it, but got the play-by-play. One of my coworkers didn't recognize him at first, but then did. Which led to the following conversation. Coworker, hey man. Is there anything I can help you with? Holy shit. You're Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl, haha yeah. Coworker, oh man. I totally did not play that cool. Oh. Is there anything I can help you find? Dave Grohl, I'm good. But thanks. They left him alone. But at the end when he was checking out, he offered to sign some stuff or take pictures. Which everyone took him up on. Super chill. Super nice guy apparently. Edit, Grohl. Terry Pratchett was as quirky and fun in real life as his books were. His passing was a huge loss to me as we'd met several times in person and had multiple conversations online. Felt like I'd lost a friend. We met Robin Williams at Universal Studios when my wife's grandmother was still alive. She said hello to him and hoped his family was having a good time. He tipped his hat to her and said thank you kindly, Mom. She talked about that encounter the rest of her days. In real life he was super short as well. And finally, Tim Hunkin, who you've probably never heard of, but he did a popular TV show in the 90s called The Secret Life of Machines. I sent him an email thanking him for helping me become interested in electronics and I got a very kind reply back. Deleted. I also live in the same area Chris Evans grew up. My husband did work for his family recently. He said they were ridiculous. Never around but made weird demands about parking and when they could work. I met the Wiggles at a country pub in Australia and they are very cool blokes. Adam Sandler, super nice and cool. Tom Hanks, class act. Seal, kind of a dick. Geena Davis, total sweetheart. Jamie Lee Curtis, all I'll say is surprisingly reasonable. She had an objectively bad experience and was reasonably upset by it. Colin Farrell, totally cool. Matt Damon, quiet but polite. Will Smith, awesome and always on. Jaden Smith, just like his dad. Jason Momoa, sweetheart. Ray Liotta, definitely a character but super cool. Michael J. Fox, sweetheart. James Corden, dick. Britney Spears, I think we caught her in a rough time. Kardashians, exactly what you'd imagine. Finn Wolfhard, kind of a dick but I'm sure it's more of him just being young. Tobey Maguire, quiet but cool. Britney Spears, I think we caught her in a rough time. Probably. Seems like 99% of her life is rough between the fame and father issues. Not me but my uncle used to be a professional bodyguard. He said by far. Tom Hanks was the kindest and the worst was Azealia Banks. Here's a video of her on Wild Out. Shows her true colors. https://yahoo. BZVX8WS8 and Jew. Drake Bell came to my college last year and played guitar. He was big when most of us were grade schoolers. But he does next to nothing now. His musical skills weren't bad. But he did a terrible show because he said nothing between songs. Despite the fact that he's now touring small, rural colleges. He was a royal jerk to all of us. He came to my school too. He came out twice for some reason and was so pissed about it. He sang the Drake and Josh song like 3 times. It was weird. Zac Efron is the nicest guy in the world. I met him at a New Year's house party in Lap. I asked him about his workout regime for Neighbors and he was so happy to talk to me. I honestly felt so comfortable talking to him. I could have asked him to get me a drink at the bar and I think he would have done it. In the end I told him he was the nicest celebrity I have ever met. He looked at me and said, "Hey man. Real recognizes real. You know." Gabriella met him at a New Year's Eve party too. Could have been the start of something new for you. My only experience with Guy Fieri thus far was cordial. Did a guest presentation for us and took plenty of photos. But every time there's a wildfire or other depressing thing going on around here, he has his second responder crew ready to feed and care for all the first responders. This needs to be higher up. People like to make fun of his persona. But he uses what he has to truly help others. Danny DeVito is one of the nicest people on earth. Adam Savage and Jamie Hyman from Mythbusters are amazingly nice to fans. My son, 7 years old at the time, asked them questions that had me cringing and thinking. You had a chance to ask them something and you asked them this? But Adam and Jamie treated his questions as seriously as they would have treated a question from Barack Obama. They acted like we were the most important people in the world at that moment. And like they had no better place to be. I've run into Stephen King a few times in Bangor, Maine. He's a chill dude. Always willing to smile and chat a bit. I noticed Ron Perlman while I was stocking veggies at Whole Foods. I met his eye and he asked me where the bell peppers were. I showed him and afterwards I asked, "Are you an actor, sir?" He paused and looked at me with a friendly smirk and said sometimes. I smiled and nodded. I decided to roll with it and drop the subject. He seemed to appreciate it and approached me again with another produce question a couple of weeks later. Seemed like a good dude with a pleasant vibe. Samuel L. Jackson at the Calgary Stampede in Canada. He was super nice. My family went up for it because my uncle is part of the committee that organizes the Stampede every year and he got us VIP seating. I was a kid at the time and I was like, "Does your wallet really say a BAMF?" He laughed and said he left that one at home. Of course when I told the story at school I told everyone his wallet did in fact say that. Deleted. The stories she tells about Jason Momoa are pretty hilarious as well. Apparently, they're really good friends. Ran into Steve Carell in an Orange County bathroom a couple years ago. I made a bad office joke. He laughed. Nice guy. Edit, since people are asking. Steve Carell. How the turntables have. Wait. I met Tony Hawk at a local skate park. Just randomly he showed up. Of course people were freaking out. But he was such a laid-back guy. Shook my hand and made small talk with me. A real nice guy. A couple years ago, I ran into Skrillex in a public rest stop in Maine. He was doing a show later that night in the area. But for obvious reasons, I thought the restroom was a bad place to try to say hello. By the time I got outside, he was already on his tour bus. I'll always regret that, LOL. Jamie Lee Curtis. I worked with special needs young adults and was with a client at the mess stop. A woman walked in with a teenager and they were shopping around. We were the only customers there, and when she asked for help from an associate, I loved the way she spoke. I went to ask her where she was from and stopped before blurting out, "Wow. Has anyone told you that you look exactly like Jamie Lee Curtis?" To which she smiled and replied, "That's because I am her." I apologized and let her get back to her shopping. Afterward, as she was about to leave, I asked her if it would be alright if I called my wife and told her where it was I ran into her. I didn't know if she wanted her location blasted, and she said of course. Want to take a picture? Absolute solid human. Love her. I work in Hollywood. So I've encountered a lot of celebrities. Nicest, Tom Hanks. Coolest, Dwayne Johnson. Funniest, Danny DeVito. Most genuine, Adam Sandler. Sweetest, Diane Keaton. Most outgoing, Adam Levine. Wildest, Steve-O. Most down-to-earth, John Bernthal. Most difficult, Jennifer Lopez. I met Miss Dolly Parton when I was just a wee kid in Illinois. I've described it as being like meeting the sun. She was just so happy and warm and wonderful. And she was the first person I'd met in real life with a southern accent. I feel like I just answered this recently. LOL. Adam Lambert is an absolute gem. And I say this without bias. He's extremely kind. Remembers me when I see him. And makes an effort to honestly connect with you. Even told me that it was nice to see me again when I last saw him. Haha. I've had some definite moments of feeling special while being around him. And that's a great feeling when you admire someone. 3. I waited on him in NYC once. I charged his phone for him. He didn't know about the airplane mode trick for iPhones. I did it for him and he was very grateful. His friends picked up the check, around $240. They left $20. He came back and gave me $60. James Corden. I was a porter at a hotel a very long time ago. He'd had a couple of very minor TV roles. I had no idea who he was, but others did. He came down in the morning yelling at the receptionist that someone had taken VHS tapes from his room. He demanded to know who had access to his room. Me being the only person on duty that night where the master key was pointed out, and he proceeded to accuse me of sneaking into his room while he slept and stealing tapes. After 10 minutes of verbal abuse and threats, one of his people came in and told him they found his tapes in the car, and he stormed out with so much as a goodbye. Truly horrible human being. He was in cats. So the universe got him back for you. Nikki Sixx went to high school with my parents and was one of my mom's best friends at that time. I got to hang out in his dressing room when they had their first reunion tour. He's a really nice, humble dude. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's immature. But he was very boyish and teenager-like. But I guess that's kind of what happens when you become a famous rock star at the age of 19. You never have to grow up. Not me, but my mother is friends with a lot of celebrity photographers, and apparently Ariana Grande is a diva that whines a lot and is just a straight bitch. A few years ago, Helen Mirren came to my job. I worked as a weekend hostess at a Ukrainian diner in NYC's The East Village. And very famous for its peerages. I didn't know who Helen Mirren was at the time. And as it was a busy Saturday brunch, I asked for her name, put it on the wait list, and let her know it would be 20 minutes. She just stood off to the side and talked with her 2 other companions. Never bothered me. Never demanded to be seated sooner. Never brought up her celebrity status. Customers kept coming up and asked if that was the Helen Mirren. My boss eventually made me seat her before everyone else. Helen looked at her watch and remarked it hadn't been 20 minutes all in all. Helen Mirren 10/10 lovely person. Deleted. It somehow seems very on brand for him. All of these were waiting tables. Waited on Gene Wilder for his birthday years ago. He was incredibly nice and laughed so hard he cried when I told him we had everlasting pistachio ice cream. Betty White was hilarious and tipsy after wine and would not stop flirting. If I had been 60 years older. NPH was also gracious as humanly possibly. Insisted we have a drink with his table while we waited on him. And tipped like a champ. Seth MacFarlane was amazing. Drew me an original cartoon and signed it there at the table. After paying and tipping 100%, he refused to let me buy him a shot of whiskey and instead bought me one. Then invited us to meet him out later. Teemu Selänne. I met him at the local hockey rink. Got a photo. Chatted for a bit. And he was great about it. Hockey players are, by and large, down to earth. Humble people. Finnish hockey players probably more so. Most hockey players are from small little farming rural communities, especially the Canadian guys. There's a handful that are dicks. Obviously, but for the most part they're good kids. Quoting myself for reiteration. There's a handful that are dicks. Obviously. I get it. Some hockey players are dicks. I know. Every single segment of any population, no matter the criteria, has its subset of dicks. Back when Michael Phelps was doing his run in the Olympics, I had a lot of friends who were either current or past athletes. I called one of my friends and he says, "Hold on, I want you to talk to someone." "Hi, my name this is Michael Phelps." "Oh hi Michael. Are you an Olympian like my friend?" Then there was silence. My friend gets back on the phone and chews me out. I was amused. Worked on a music video with both Pee Wee Herman and Karen Gillan. Pee Wee was super dickish and demanding and made the producers' lives hell the whole time. And I only saw him when he was needed on set. Had to be driven to and from his AC dressing room 30 minutes to film site. Complained the whole time. Had his own catering. Showed up late. Karen was super chill. Ate with the crew. Answered questions about Doctor Who and Marvel. Did costume changes in a pass van. And was generally down to earth and charming. Also very tall. Wasn't expecting that. I have a hard time with super attractive women already. And her towering over people really added to that. I'm so glad that Karen was nice because she just seems like a gem in everything I've seen her in. Interviews. Instagram etc. Ran into Stone Cold Steve Austin outside the Toronto Skydome after WrestleMania 18. I told him he had a good match that night and he shook my hand and said, "Nice to meet you, sir." Seriously, the only person I've ever been okay with calling me sir. I was like a 21-year-old nobody at the time. Would have preferred him to flip you off to maintain the aura, but that's nice too, I guess. Super nice. Lee Ermey. Billy Joel. Garth Brooks. The Irish Tenors. Polite but not interested in engaging with a stranger. Keith Urban. Kind of a dick. Kenny Chesney. I met Kiefer Sutherland after one of his gigs and he was the most humble celeb I've ever met, so genuine and nice. He took pictures with everyone and signed everything. There was about 15 people. He even had a chat with us all and thanked us for waiting for him while he was doing a radio interview. Phil Vischer and Mike Nowrocki, the voices of Bob and Larry from VeggieTales, were nice. Ugh. Those guys must be so sick of getting recognized everywhere they go. I got a hug from Hozier after one of his concerts. There wasn't a meet and greet. A friend and I were hanging out by the stage door with some fans and we managed to get to the front row. He came out and everyone was losing their minds. Screaming and crying. I just asked if I could hug him and he smiled. Said of course and gave me such a warm and tight hug. He was a kind soul and I hope everyone listens to his music at some point. I also met Tyler Perry in an elevator once. He was staying a few floors above my family in a hotel. Super nice guy and really great personality. Deleted. He's a pastor. He's used to preaching. Face with tears of joy. My manager at GameStop back in 2005 told me about the time he was a kid and ran into Jake the Snake Roberts at some diner or something while on a family trip. Jake was sitting at a booth eating by himself. My boss was a big fan of wrestling and wanted to go over and say hello. My boss asked Jake, "Where's Damien?" And the wrestler responded, "Right here, kid," as he adjusted his junk. Seemed pretty on brand. I worked on a project with Michael Franti, who is the kindest, most patient, most humble and most friendly celebrity ever. He truly treats the janitor job folks with as much respect and attention as the execs. Lovely human being. Met Colin MacDougal at some obscure convention in my city. He actually talked to us for a few minutes and I basically just fangirled about Who's Line and Royal Canadian Air Force. Really great guy. He has my absolute respect. Ran into Gordon Ramsay with his daughter at the Tom's Coffee on Abbot Kinney in Venice Beach. Yes. Tom's the shoe brand has a dope coffee shop. Didn't want to interrupt his day out with his daughter by asking him for a photo. So I just gave him a "Hey, chef," to which he responded, "Hey, how you going?" Super nice dude when he's not expected to cuss people out and call them idiot sandwiches on TV. Not a story of mine. So can't really confirm, but nevertheless made me laugh my ass off. So a friend of mine had the chance to meet Patrick Roach, guy who plays Randy in Trailer Park Boys, in a party. Being a huge fan of the show, my friend walks up to him and tells him how he's been a fan of the show since childhood and how he respects his acting. Apparently the guy just looked at him, said "Oh that's cool man, watch this," and proceeded to pound fat line of coke through his nose right in front of him. I'm believing it. Bo Bandy. Courtney Cox. She was the sweetest woman I've ever met. Davey Boy Smith, wrestler back in the day. I was at a wave pool in Edmonton. I was around 12 years old. Deep end of the pool for the waves. He stole my tube I was floating on, and when I grabbed onto it so I didn't just about drown, he told me to fuck off and shoved me off it. Yeah, he's famously a prick. I believe Dynamite Kid was worse, but both were famously disliked. Deleted. It makes me so happy that she called you a boob. David Bowie was extremely nice. I worked on his production of Lazarus in NYC before he passed and was no older than 20 at the time, considerably younger than most on the crew. He took time out of talking to the director to turn to me and tell me that I was doing a phenomenal job on the production. Meant the world to me that he would do that for the shy and sure 20-year-old. Totally made my life. Sylvester McCoy came through my line at Target once. I recognized his voice and just kept telling myself it wasn't him. I couldn't shake the feeling, so I asked, "I know this sounds stupid, but you sound like the Seventh Doctor." He answered coyly, "The truth is," he puffs up his chest, "I am him." I totally geeked out, and Davros, Terry Malloy, was with him. I never got a photo, but hot damn were they just amazing people. Woody Harrelson came to my college and ended up hanging out, drinking and smoking with us. Nice guy. The highlight was when he sang the Kelly song, from Cheers, "Yeah I'm Old," to my friend Kelly. My dad tells us the story of a coffee date he went on in college, and the girl he was with noticed Tim Curry was there ordering a coffee. She keeps trying to make eye contact but eventually realized that Tim was checking out my dad. I'll be honest, my dad's not a very serious man, but he swears this one is true. Either way, take it with a grain of salt. Emma Stone is nice, but very into herself. I met her in a very quiet and rural petrol station where I worked at the time, and genuinely had no idea who she was. She made small talk with me while buying some goods, and I just thought she was an overly friendly person. Then as I was ringing up her items, she looked at me with a smirk and said, "Don't you know who I am?" and looked a bit deflated when I said no. Sorry? Didn't realize until my co-worker pointed out who she was after she had already left. It's crazy and kinda sad that people actually ask that question. My wife and I happened to walk by Norman Reedus at a Comic-Con event. He was walking to his booth and his guards were shooing people away. But luckily we were on the other side of the shooing. There was 2 other people near us walking towards him, so we decided to follow. As we approached him, he told the other 2 that he was sorry he couldn't take a picture with them because he was running late. But then he caught a glimpse of my wife's pouty face and said, "Oh okay, I'll take a picture with you because you look so sad." We laughed and she explained that she didn't even realize that she was pouting. We had no hopes of meeting any of TWD cast, so it was a pleasant surprise to be in the right place at the right time. He was a cool dude, and a lot shorter than you would imagine. I love how Op asked for celebrities who are either assholes or nice, and most stories are about awesome celebs. I'm genuinely surprised. My mom was hiking in the mountains in Georgia and saw a couple people wearing headsets walking around with some local law enforcement. She thought she'd stumbled upon some crime scene, but it turned out they were a film crew being looked over by the sheriff's department while a walk in the woods was being filmed. She got to meet Robert Redford and Nick Nolte. Both of them were apparently very nice. Patti Smith, Eleftheria Arvantiki and Linda Van Dyke. Absolutely nice and sweet people, but on the job. Had to look up the last 2. For those similarly ignorant. Patti Smith, US punk singer. Eleftheria Arvantiki, Greek singer. Linda Van Dyke, Dutch actress. Jeffree Star. Accidentally walked too close to his bag at a concert and he nearly broke his neck to say, "Watch where you're fucking going, bitch." I always figured he was kinda rude. He portrays himself as, "I love my fans so much, thanks so much for supporting me," but behind the scenes if you ran into him he'd be like, "Get out of my way, I don't have time for this." I met Jimmy Carter. He was great. He was giving out autographs, photos. His security told us we couldn't get an autograph unless we had one of his books. He told them to back off and let us in anyway. I met Chris Hemsworth at a convention in Australia. Our only interaction was him apologizing to me for a mother's rudeness as she shoved me out of the way because her child meeting Chris was more important. Rip to Chris for dealing with entitled parents like them. Taylor Swift. She was about 16 at the time and just started getting popular. I was at a store with my mom and in my supreme 6-year-old intellect told her that she was fatter IRL than on album covers. Impressively enough she explained it without missing a beat and took it like a champ. I know you're not reading this but sorry Taylor Swift. This makes me so sad now that she shared how hard body image had been for her. Andy Dick sexually assaulted a male friend in Vegas when they were both drunk. Is there anyone Andy Dick hasn't sexually harassed? Met Superman. Christopher Reeve. Before his accident, at a small town charity function. No entourage. No fancy demands. Just a genuine nice guy being the auctioneer at a tiny event in Texas. A swell fellow. When I was 5 years old I was running down a hotel lobby in Miami until I crashed into Jay's legs. From my father's perspective he said Jay's laughed it off and continued his walk down the lobby. I met Lady Gaga on a street corner in Lower Manhattan 2 years ago. I had no idea it was her so we struck up a conversation as two random strangers and she ended up having her friend take a picture of us. I only found out who she was when I was getting into my Uber and her friend yelled out, "Hey, you know that was Lady Gaga right? She was really friendly and down to earth." Dax Shepard, Kristen Bell. Very good. Genuine people. Here is one of many examples. https://www.inman.com the 25th of March 2020 amid pandemic Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard waive rent for tenants. Met Selena Gomez at Target here in Grand Prairie, Texas. I believe parents or grandparents live in Texas. In 2010 when I was a cashier and didn't realize it until my co-workers said you know that was Selena Gomez you just checked out. She was very nice. Also met Des Bryant, former Dallas Cowboys receiver, at a music studio. Music friend was a good friend of his, nice and humble guy. Even bought a 70-inch TV and Xbox One for the studio. Kathy Kinney Mimi on Drew Carey. She was a really nice person. I met her in a Kohl's checkout line and she shook my hand with a big smile. She's lovely in real life as well. Jimmy Carr was awesome. Kind, patient and funny. Even though while probably being quite annoying. He even signed my Sylvia Plath book. Hugh Jackman. Super nice.